Welcome, everyone, to YourDesk University, bringing you live learning with AEC Tech experts directly to your desk. My name is Tim and Hazel. I'm a senior technical designer at Walter P. Moore, and tonight I will be your host as we kick off this series. YourDesk University is an initiative intended to help the AEC technology community connect and share knowledge during these challenging times. You can tune in here 2 to 3 times per week for focused presentations with live Q&A. Take this opportunity to broaden your understanding of the digital revolution that is overcoming our industry, or to learn a new skill from these AEC tech experts. We are a growing team of passionate tech enthusiasts and meetup groups. The open source community has given so much to our industry, and in return, we give you this, a high quality training opportunity right from your desk. And it's all free. If you're tuning in live, don't forget to use the chat on the right side to ask your questions. I'll try to include those as we go or get to them at the end. Have you seen the list of AEC tech experts involved in this initiative? We have #1 rated speakers from Autodesk University, Built, and Midwest U. We have experts on Dynamo, Grasshopper, and data visualization. We have 3D model makers and experts on leading cultural change. They care about a variety of topics, including the intersection of sustainability and tech. These are your AEC tech experts. They are leading this digital revolution from within their companies. And in our lineup after today, we have Kadim Al-Asadi on Thursday talking about repeatable Grasshopper and how he repeats different parts of the code from different scripts. It's going to be awesome. You guys have to tune in. But tomorrow, we also have a great presentation about face shield making and how these experts, Nick Jacobson from Mixed Surgical Technologies and Olivia Morgan from Model Space, are going to talk about how they're providing for this need in our current supply chain. And now, for the moment everyone's been waiting for, we go live with our first AEC Tech expert, John Pierson. Hey, John.
Hey, everyone. How's it going?
It's good to have you. John,
Yeah,
for those who don't know, for those who don't know, John is awesome at making learning fun. He's a design technology specialist at Parallax, where he develops custom solutions for clients in the AEC industry. He's super active on the Dynamo forums and throughout the community. He's well known for his custom packages that are all freely available and open source to everybody. In addition to sharing his workflows, John is a routine presenter at Built and AU, where he's been a top-rated speaker. John, thanks for coming and joining us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to help kick this awesome event off.
This big series, yeah. To help our audience connect with you before you get started, can you share something about yourself outside of work?
Yeah, so outside of work, one kind of interesting fact is I like to work on old Volkswagens. So my wife and I, we actually have a Volkswagen bus and a Volkswagen Bug that we kind of work on as hobby cars, and we go camping in the bus. It's a camper. We have a black lab, and a lot of what we do either involves those Volkswagens or our black lab and some variation of traveling or something like that. So it's kind of, if I'm not hacking away at a computer, I'm generally spending time with my family, my wife and my dog, right?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Thanks for sharing that. What do you have for us today?
Yeah, so today, this is a kind of modified presentation titled Dynamo Why So Serious. It's from a Built Australia presentation that I did a year ago. And it was kind of in response to a lot of times people look at Dynamo and think it's something that's just to toy around with only, and it can't be the serious thing that does very powerful stuff. I'm kind of infamous for, screwing around a lot in Dynamo as well. And I've seen some comments in the chat regarding some of the usage of memes and GIFs and stuff like that in some of my tools. And we'll look at some of that. Yeah, it's going to be fun. This is 20 minutes of stuff and 10 minutes of questions. If you know me, I kind of have a tendency to get long-winded too. So that's going to be my challenge during this. So
I think that's going to be one of the hardest parts about this series. We're, really trying to condense the most important parts of people's presentations.
Exactly.
So, thanks for that.
Yeah, so let's see. I think I can share my screen.
Yep, go for it.
So let's see. Pretty background. Cool. So I know this isn't a really long presentation, so I'll hurry through these. That's kind of what we're doing. I work with these awesome people, and we're going to review Dynamo in like 30 seconds, real quick for everyone watching. Generally, when I'm speaking with people, I say, "Who uses Dynamo?" And everyone raises their hand, and it's awesome. So put in the chat if you use Dynamo, and then we'll try to just see how many users of Dynamo we have. Dynamo 134, old version, Revit 17 through 19, very different. Not existent in Revit 20 and up. Very weird how it looked now that you look at some of these old screenshots. For today, we'll be in Dynamo 2.5.0 in Revit, which is kind of funny. If Saul's watching, he's going to love that. So that's kind of how Dynamo 134 looked. Still works great on 17, 18, and 19 for Revit. And this is how Dynamo 2.0 thinks. It's also available for 17 through 19 in some variant, but then 20 up, it's available different ways. So it's a different file format. So we'll see a lot of stuff kind of change over time. So if you haven't moved to Dynamo 2.0, time to kind of move into it. That's kind of where I'm getting with this. This is how it looks. It's a JSON-based file format. So you see curly braces instead of the little carrots that we saw initially. And it's not backwards compatible. So that's going to be one big thing is it's not a 2.0 graph cannot be opened in 1.3. Big thing to keep in mind. With Revit 2020, we now have Dynamo as an integrated product with Revit. So we don't have to update it anymore, which is awesome because updating Dynamo sucked until they did this. So yeah, very good move on the team. The only problem is you can only really get Dynamo updates as you get Revit updates. So right now in Revit, we're on 2.3.0, I believe. And that's if you have Revit 2020.2, unless you get clever, which I mean, I like to get in trouble and clever. So we'll
So are
see
you
that
saying
too.
for our users, there's no way to have multiple versions of Dynamo anymore in a particular version of Revit, and it's kind
So
of like consistent?
exactly. So 2020 and up, it's going to come with the Revit point releases. So whenever you click the Dynamo button, you won't see that little toggle that shows up that says choose version, which is a good thing because now if you're building your graphs with 2.0 in mind, your users don't have to open the wrong version. And then it's a more stable product. We're seeing Dynamo grow up in a really cool way with some of these changes. So yeah, we'll look at that. I'm going to fly through some of this. We'll look at a way to sync packages locally. So this is from a built presentation, like I said. We'll look at the Dynamo command line interface, maybe a little bit. And then we'll look at some other strategies for building really great Dynamo graphs. These are some little extra tidbits that we have in the presentation. So if you don't annotate your Dynamo graphs, you really should. And this is an easier way to do it. Beyond that, we'll look at some other things. I'll include this handout after this too, just because it has a whole lot of cool stuff in it.
Right, and we can just put that right below.
Yep, so we'll end up pasting that in there too. So yeah, so let's see, let's get right into it. So we're in Revit 2020, kind of exciting, I suppose, right? Once again, since Revit 17, Dynamo is on the Manage tab. So if we click on Manage and then Dynamo, we'll be able to launch Dynamo. Probably a review for some of the folks in the chat, but I think this is a really good tip to know. So generally speaking, whenever you launch Dynamo and start a new graph or script, you click on New. Blank canvas, cool. You can start placing nodes, code blocks, all that cool stuff. A great way to handle things is to color code. And I don't know, I always say this when I show this, I don't know who I learned this from. It was on the Dynamo forum like 3 years ago. If it's anyone, let me know and I'll give you credit. Sorry. The community's awesome. And I learned this from them and I don't even know who it was from. On your home screen in this lower corner, we actually have some samples, a samples folder that Dynamo includes, the Dynamo team includes with every Dynamo installation. These are kind of some basic scripts that teach you how to do things, have some notes. That way you know how to get started. I've actually helped audit some of these as well because We really want to help people know how to break into it. Someone on the forum showed if you click on the samples folder, we can actually add our own files into the sample folder. So at our company, we have a folder called template with a template in it. So in Dynamo, anytime I start a fresh file, I just click on template and I do a save as. So it's kind of how I start all my Dynamo graphs these days. The reason is I have all these really cool notes and colored groups embedded in this file. I also have a open source license embedded that's like a cover your behind license. Um, Whenever I start a file, I already have color coding going on. So when I'm building a graph, I'm able to quickly annotate my graph to hand it off to the next guy or gal. That's really important when it comes to making reusable Dynamo workflows because you don't want to leave the next person just kind of hanging. So that's a really important little tidbit that's a little bit extra. And I just realized for the command line interface, I'm in a custom version of Dynamo, so I won't be able to show that right now. So we'll look at that one a little bit later too. So in regards to how we actually use this stuff, what I can do is show something else called extensions. Let's step back actually.
Yeah, I feel
We're
like I
getting a
saw
little
something recently where you were, doing something with colors all over those groups.
exactly. So yeah, we're going to go into that in a second. So the template's just a little tidbit. In regards to Dynamo development, this is another question I get a lot of the time. So this is kind of a still back on the overview side of things. How do you know what's coming out? How do you know what's next? So in regards to the version I'm in specifically, if I go to help and about, I can see that I am in Dynamo Core 2.5 and Dynamo Revit 2.3. So I forced Dynamo Core into Revit since I'm doing some testing. So that's kind of on my end. But a lot of times I share stuff and people are like, John, how come you're sharing what's coming out in Dynamo? Aren't you like gonna get in trouble? Like what are
Isn't
you
that a
doing?
secret?
Yeah, everything's a secret, right? So I've had a lot of people come up to me at conferences like after presentations and they're really asking me like, are you allowed to share that? And the answer is anything that we do share, generally speaking, is going to be on their open source list. So I'm very careful to keep an eye on these repositories. Tim, and you mentioned it at the beginning. Uh, the open source community is amazing, and Dynamo is very much part of that. So even more than being a tool, Dynamo is a whole community. I always refer to myself as a Dynamo community member because I'm right there with everyone in the trenches, figuring this stuff out as well. So if you're ever curious, like what's coming up, you can navigate to their GitHub. There's this little button that says commits. This is like their sync with Central when they build code. If we navigate into here, we can see what they're starting to add. So really quickly, I'm able to come in here and say, oh, look, sheet nodes. What's going on in here? If I scroll through, and I'll actually find one that looks a little bit better. If I scroll through, they actually include screenshots of what's coming. So this is a new node that's coming out in a future version of Dynamo, and I now know that just from browsing a repo. Kind of cool stuff. It's
So all
one
this secret
very
information you have is actually
yeah,
publicly available for the rest of us to become experts.
yeah, exactly. So whenever you're bored, just browse the Dynamo repo. You can access it on your phone and stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, anytime like you want to know what's coming out, especially anyone like in the chat that's the like leader for Dynamo and the champion for their firm, you can stay up to date on this stuff really well. Another interesting thing is the Dynamo team does start to recruit functionality from custom packages as well. So like if we navigate to Clockwork for Dynamo, one of the must-have packages. I won't show very many packages because Carl Storms is going to show that at the end of this whole thing. But if we navigate to his GitHub, he actually has a whole lot of nodes highlighted that he's building that are about to get removed after a while because they're absorbing them into the core Dynamo. So they're like getting
Hmm.
promoted. Really cool stuff to keep up to date with as well because the less dependency on packages, the better as well. I know I'm a package creator and I advocate for them, but the less dependencies in your Dynamo graphs, the better. So this is all great, and it's great for the community. So I see that as a very positive thing. It's actually happened to a few of my nodes as well, to where I kind of copied Andreas's little tracker, and now I have mine getting tracked as well. So it's really cool. I see it like as a promotion of the nodes, which is kind of fun. Cool. So I know that's kind of, it's not exactly super technical, but it's kind of fun to show, I think.
Well, I mean, based on the audience that we have, I think this is the kind of stuff that they're curious about. Is a little bit, it's kind of a different spin on every piece of information.
For sure. So yeah, let's look at how those color coding things actually interact. So what I'll do is I have a sample graph in this thing. We'll open it in manual run mode. And we'll see that this is how my graph looks. So I actually had to remove the groups for this example because I group everything. I follow my own rules, right? So if you have graphs that look like this isn't great. This is kind of a lower level beginner thing, but don't do this. Annotate your graphs as much as you can. So like the one problem I see with people needing to annotate their graphs is they have to come in and do this. They select things, right click, create group. It's always this like puke green. They have to come in and say this is input. They have to right click and they have to change the color, change the font because for some reason it's 36. It's very not appealing to have to do that every time you're working. So that's something I see a lot with a lot of people making graphs. The good news is if you use these kind of colors in a template, we can start to use these things called view extensions. So this is kind of interesting because with Dynamo, we can build things that aren't so useful. And I don't know if I can actually show it with audio. We can try. And I'll show this one.
Yeah, I don't know. We tried audio, and I'm not sure it'll come across.
Yeah, so that one has audio. So what we'll do is we'll show the one with no audio. So view extensions allow you to access Dynamo's API to do really wild things. So the why so serious is you can do really weird things with a view extension. So what that is like an add-on to Dynamo that lets you access Dynamo's API to be able to tweak it around. Another extension is Monocle. This is an extension that I developed that actually gives you quick, really fast access to color coding things with those preset colors. So as you come in, it gives you a default name of the group and the color that you want. So now I know that that's input. I know that this is going to open something, and this specific graph loads view templates from a file. That's actually in Revit interaction. So I'll do that. This is a
Did
filter
it just
of view
name it and color it at the same time?
Yep,
Oh,
exactly. So
half of my day
less
back.
so less useful extension was the nodes rotating and spinning. More useful is speeding up your already your process that's already speeding something else up, right? So that's kind of fun. That's the Monocle extension. There's a whole lot of tools in there. Another thing it does is it'll actually align groups to clean up your graphs. So one big thing I'm passionate about is people building Dynamo graphs. They need to build them well. So that's kind of where that one's from. I need to hurry up, don't I?
Yeah.
Oh my
We're
goodness,
moving
I
along.
told you. A few others that are really nice. So Dynamo Nito, that's one where you can fix ungrouped things in the graph and search your graph. This is from the Clockwork creator, Andreas. I won't go through every tool, but it is really nice for if I were to not have something in a group, his graph will actually go through and help us fix some of that. So really quickly, it said all that stuff should have been in that group.
Oh, nice.
Great stuff for sure.
And those are all different
see.
than packages, right?
Yeah, so those are available through the package manager for Dynamo 2.0 and up. So yeah, that's a really good way to know what's going on. Really quickly, let's show another way of seeing some of this stuff.
Oh, it's
So really
worse.
messy graph. This is scary. When you open this, you're like, oh, Dynamo's the worst. And you close it and you move on. The Dynamo team actually embeds view extensions within Dynamo as well. The package manager is a view extension. The library used to be a view extension, but now they have things like this workspace references view extension. So what this does is tell you what packages you're missing in this graph and how to fix it. So they finally listened. They added that. It's awesome. It's available in 2.3.0 and up, I think. So that's really useful, and I see that as a very positive addition to Dynamo. If you're in an older version and you install Monocle, you just right click on a node and say look up where it's from. So that's also available to anyone back as far as 2.0. Really good way to audit your graphs. If you're really feeling crazy, you open this guy and then you click on the nodes and it tells you where they come from. Yeah, so
Back
that's
to
another option too.
1995.
There you go. Another quick view extension that I'll show. Let's see. I didn't realize, I knew it was going to go fast, but holy smokes.
20 minutes isn't a long time.
You
Now,
guys are
I will
killing me.
tell everyone who's watching this live is it's 20 minutes plus Q&A. So
Oh,
if you
good.
want to keep John here for a little bit longer, I see a couple different comments and questions coming in. But
Yeah.
ask some good questions that can lead us into further discussion. And
Yeah,
John
let me know if
will keep
any
John.
questions come in. So one other view extension that I really want to show because it doesn't get enough credit is an extension called Thesaurus. So this actually came out of a hackathon in Boston, I think, and it's using machine learning to help you predict what next node you want to place. So all you need to do, and I'll actually open a folder for this and show it, is you need to have some training data. So with any machine learning algorithm, you need to train it on something. It's not magic. If there's one thing you take away from this webinar, it's that it's not magic, and you need to train the darn thing. So remember that. If you have a directory of graphs that like someone in your firm has built who's really good at Dynamo, you can actually train an algorithm on it through the Thesaurus extension. So what I can do is I'll actually navigate down to this folder real quick, graphs to train on. It'll tell you that it's trained. And now you open the next magic window and you start placing nodes. So we'll kind of end on this, but at least before the Q&A. So now as I place a node, it's predicting what's next. So I might want to use all elements of category after a category node. Makes sense. I might want to get the parameters from those walls based on that training data. So I'll do that. This one knows that I placed a code block before. That's probably because I wanted to filter by some kind of parameter. So we'll do unconnected height, because I know walls have that parameter. Right now, it's kind of not knowing what to do quite yet. So we'll give it a little hint. We'll say it does not equal to something. It knows that it's probably another code block. So we'll reuse this one and we'll just do 0, just because I know that'll work. I probably want to filter those, so I'll use the filter. And we can kind of keep going through based on what I trained it on. So that directory of training data that I used, use these nodes in this sequence. This is also free and open source and on the package manager. So be sure to check it out.
I love to see some of the chat coming in here now. Seems
Exactly.
like most of what you've been talking about has been automating automation. So that's kind of cool. People are liking that a lot. What's the best way, in your opinion, to pin or save favorite nodes, particularly ones that people are using regularly?
Yeah, so I saw that one on my iPad. So you can actually, I think they're going to update this eventually. This package hasn't been updated in a bit, but if you download the Design Tech view extension, you can actually do favorite nodes by putting in their values and saving them. So now that should place a code block. Filter by Boolean, Bool mask, I think is the name. Now it'll place that one. So these are your favorite nodes. These are actually serialized in your app data. So you can add them that way and start to distribute that to your users if you wanted to. With any of these extensions, they actually float on your screen. So you can kind of just have it open and keep working with it if you wanted. Right now, these don't do anything because I didn't add that value quite yet. He gives you access to 8, which is pretty good. Um, but yeah, there's a few other things in there as well. So like you can count how many nodes you have in your graph and things like that.
That's pretty cool.
So yeah, that's an answer to that question as
It
well.
seems like coming back to the thesaurus, it seems like if you have a couple people who've built a lot of Dynamo and they're trying to teach new people how to use it, like that might be a useful way to help them like figure out, oh, if you just place like a equal equals, node,
Yes,
then
for
you might
sure.
be using the filter by Boolean mask, but someone new is sometimes like, oh, I forget what's this exact node called, and I can't seem to find it when I go searching for it.
Exactly, especially with like filter by bool mask. It's kind of a weird one. So like what's nice is even if you don't click the next node, it kind of gives you that little nudge like, hey, you might want to use these ones because so and so's used them a bunch of times.
Mm-hmm.
So really nice to have. I hope one day that this becomes something. Grasshopper has something like this in it, where it'll show predictions. Um, I hope this is something that becomes out of the box one day, just because I think it's a great training tool to have. Another extension as new in 2.5 is called TuneUp. If your graph is running really slow, so we'll copy a bunch of stuff. Don't do this ever.
You've
Don't
said
try
that
this at
multiple
home.
times now.
Yeah. So like if you copy all these, you can start to see which parts of your graph are running slow. I could see that I have two of these get parameter value by names in there. So I could start to optimize that. That one's available in 2.5 and up as well. Um, so that's
Yeah.
always kind of nice.
What do you think about in your template model? I noticed, or in your template script, it was pretty empty. But what do you think about putting some things in there that you know that you're going to use regularly, like
Oh,
connection with
absolutely.
Excel or something like that?
Yeah, so I love that question too. So if you were to have some templates that you like for different things based on what you're doing, you can put those in that folder as well. If you were to look at the Dynamonito extension, we do have the option for new workspaces from a template. So he has some pre-built in there from the samples, the basic files. But your user, when they start a new graph, instead of navigating to that first menu that I went to, they can
Mm-hmm.
actually launch a new graph called home from that template and move
Oh, nice.
forward with it. So that's really nice because you could start to have that template in there and it could say like read write Excel, modify parameters, generative design, or whatever you want to do.
Looking through the questions here, we
Yeah.
have one for you. What is a computer? If you were to theorize on that one a little bit, I know someone's having a lot of fun, but we'll go there for a
What is a
second.
computer? That it's something that you could make sweet memes with.
Yes, yes, definitely. You are
Yeah, if
the.
I can't make sweet memes on it, it's not a computer
It's
to
not
me.
a computer.
Yeah,
Okay.
there we go. That's
Yeah.
that's stamped. That's my. Oh man, that's what everyone's gonna be like. Oh, that's what he did. Yeah.
We have a couple more minutes here. Do you have any particular pieces you wanted to touch on before we end?
Yeah, I would say that in regards to Dynamo, you can pretty you could pretty much do anything you want with it. So I get the question a lot: can Dynamo do X, Y, Z?
Hmm.
Most often, the answer is yes. Um, if you're ever curious what exactly you can do if it hasn't been exposed yet, you need to definitely read up on the API docs for Revit's API. So anytime that you want to, and someone will get more into this in later presentations on this series, if it's not doable in the API, it's going to be very difficult to implement in Dynamo. So if you're like the champion of your firm, you could come in here, and someone actually just showed me this one today. What was it? Pattern baluster info. Yeah, baluster pattern. So someone was asking about balusters today on something and counting them and modifying them. And I was like, oh, that can't be done. And then the guy actually sent me a link to the API in here. He's like, I found this. And I was like, oh, cool. You can do it since Revit 20. So they added some stuff. So anytime a new Revit version comes out, I don't get as excited about the actual release of Revit as much as I do about the API methods that they added, because that means that we can poke around with more cool stuff that they thought wasn't quite ready for its own button yet or something.
Yeah,
Um,
that's really cool. I've used this in the same way to like, hey, can we do this? That's really nice. What about for Dynamo? Is there anything kind of similar that you can find some of the API for Dynamo?
yeah, so on the Dynamo repo, there should be a link somewhere in here for where they have it, documentation of the Dynamo API. It's Dynamo has packages that it accesses for its source code the same way that it accesses packages for Revit code. So they actually expand all that on this website as well. So you could come in and start to see what's going on. So in regards to stuff going on in the nodes of your Dynamo graph, that would be in the graph.nodes namespace. So namespaces are kind of like the overall objects as well. At AU, I give an example of like my dog because he's of the animals namespace. He's a
Mm.
dog within it, and then he has properties and things like that. Um, so you could start to get in here and look at what you can do. More often than not, I'll just get in like when I'm like coding something like Monocle, I'll just see what I can do. Um, just to sum that up, you could pretty much do anything you want in Dynamo if you put your mind to it. So here's how to clean up half of your graph real quick. So like you click that, and then half of your graph starts to go away, and some of them don't go so easy, but they'll eventually disappear and half of your graph gets cleaned up. So after it does its little time, half of my graph is now gone and clean. They're deleted. So yeah, that's a real extension.
They're just gone.
That really delete everything, but you can hit undo. So yeah. So if you put your mind to it, you could pretty much do whatever you want within Dynamo and the API. You can add functionality. This specific graph triggers a UI from data shapes to be able to load view templates. I'm on an extra wide screen right now, so it's kind of goofy.
Mm.
But you could start to pick things and load UIs, so it's kind of fun. Once again, oh, this won't go away now.
Oh no,
Well,
an eternal
we'll
loop.
just yeah, we'll just get that one off the screen. But yeah, so you could start to do some really neat stuff.
Yeah. There's a question here about upcoming changes that are coming in Dynamo along the way. Do you know much about things that are? I mean, is there something you haven't talked about so far that you're able to share that you think would be helpful for the group?
I think in terms of
Besides, there's an entire library of everything that's coming down the pipeline. Go read it, which was
exactly.
great.
Yeah, so in regards to kind of that question too, I like to keep an eye on the forum as well. A lot of the Dynamo team members are really active on there. Other than that, the GitHub, Twitter is really good to keep an eye on as well and see what's going on. And generally speaking, any Revit update, they'll have release notes. So, like even for Revit 2020.2, there was release notes, and Dynamo's part of those release notes now. So it'll say,
Hmm.
"Oh, in Dynamo, um, for that version of Revit, we actually added like a delete node." So I don't know who all knows, but they added a delete node in Dynamo 2.3 that came out with Revit 2020.2 or whatever. So if we search for delete, and I'll kind of navigate over, there is the one from Archilab, of course, but there's a delete node that's out of the box. The way I found out about that was in the release notes. Delete's a very touchy subject, and like you even kind of winced at it because deleting things in Revit's kind of scary, especially if you're automating it. So always switch to manual run mode before you do something like that too. So keep an eye on the release notes for sure, or just bug
Nice.
Saul. He's in the chat too.
Yeah, I saw he popped in
Yeah,
there
you
at the
can
end.
message him directly anytime.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm sure he loves that.
I noticed a post from him on that this shameless plug here on the when you were going to the Dynamo forum. I saw there was a post there about halfway down the screen about some
Yes.
program.
This?
Yeah, thanks for being a part of it.
So he shared this on there as well to get more people to read
Yeah.
about it. On the forum, the blog's great because Saul always mocks up like a whole release notes as well. He always includes a too long didn't read section. So like this is the one I read always. So that's great. I appreciate that he does that. So yeah, always keep up to date on that. Anytime I find stuff, I have a tendency of sharing it too, good
Mhm.
and bad. Um, So yeah, it's as a package creator, I keep an eye on what's going on with Dynamo because if it breaks anything that I do, like I gotta mitigate that pretty quickly.
Yeah.
For instance, the whole package thing, uh, nodes not knowing what package they came from has existed since like forever in Dynamo. So I actually fix that by appending my package name to the beginning of all my nodes now. So like that's done through a view extension, just because solving problems is kind of important.
Yeah. Well, it looks like we're about out of time, and I'm not seeing any more new questions coming in. So thanks for joining us. It's really great to have you on here. Before you go, can you recommend a favorite book potentially to our audience? Leave a
Oh,
little Easter egg at the end. Any
you
books you would
gotta toss
recommend
that
for
one
our
on me.
group? You bet.
Well, I can recommend one that's on my list that Conrad shared with me, and oh my gosh, I'm gonna forget the name like
Oh
right
no.
now. Give me 1 second. I have it on my iPad right here. It's came highly recommended, and I'm working my way through it. It's called Give and Take, and it's about sharing. Um, the other one is that we've really enjoyed that we have an audiobook of. I'm gonna give two. Is the subtle art of not giving a F. It's actually a really good book that's talking about like prioritizing what you care about and having time to give your attention to. It's kind of blunt in its nature, but it's really nice to start to think about those kind of things, especially these days. I think everyone just needs to try to remain as positive as they can and just do what they need to do to stay safe and everything as well.
Yeah. Well, thanks a bunch, and thanks everybody who participated in the chat. Saw some really great things in there. Definitely go back and look through that later on. But I think at a time like this, it's neat to see so many people coming together. And John, like everybody else, thanks so much. And with that, I think we'll call it a wrap.
Awesome. Thanks.